Hi, I'm Ron Jackson with Acoustic Guitar, and we're going to talk about how to harmonize in the Chet Atkins style, an introduction to chord melody. Learning chord melody on the guitar is expressing melodies in chords rather than in single notes. This is quite a task to learn, but it's a very valuable skill. While the approach has been seen most commonly in jazz and jazz-informed musicians like Earl Klug and Chet Atkins, this could be added to your guitar playing to add a new dimension for almost any other style. This weekly workout will show you everything you need to get started harmonizing melodies through assorted treatments with tunes like London Bridge and Billy Boy, which are classic tunes. So let's get right to this. Now, in week one, we're going to talk about how important the melody is, okay? A prerequisite to playing in the chord melody style is for you really to know the melody that you're going to be playing very well as a single line note, okay? You should be able to play that melody in every key and every position if possible. So we actually take the melody in week one, example one of London Bridge is Falling Down in the key of G, and we actually play this basically in first position like that, okay? But you should be able to practice that melody, and you should practice that melody in different fingerings, which is a very difficult task to do on the guitar. See how many ways I can play that? Just the first 7 notes of that actually. So let's play example number 1. I'm not going to be playing with a metronome during this weekly workout, so you can play these melodies freely, because it's going to be hard enough to play the melody with the chords later in time and out of time, okay? So here's example number 1, London Bridge. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now remember to practice this melody with different fingerings and different variations in different keys if possible, and different strings, etc. Now in example number 2, we're going to flesh out the melody with some basic open string chords, falling on every other note in bars 1 to 3 and all the notes in bar 4. It's helpful to know the function of each melody note against the chord. For instance, the first note of example number 2 in the first beat, okay, is actually a D note, which is the 5th of the G chord. The second note is a 6th, okay, etc. So you can practice this and learn this by yourself before you even play the example. Determine what note functions within the chord that you're playing for the rest of the melody notes, okay? Now when you work through this example, you could use finger style picking like this, or hybrid picking, which I'm basically doing, which I mostly do myself, which is picking fingers. Okay? Now it's very important when you're playing chord melody to hear the melody stand out on top of the chord that you're playing. Now you do this by attacking the string, the melody note with a greater force within the chord or on top of the chord. Hear that? Now this is going to take you some time, so you have to learn how to be patient, and it'll come eventually with practice, okay? So let's try example number 2, nice and slow and rubato. I'll give you a count off, but it'll be basically out of time. Example number 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now in example number 3, you'll place a chord under every melody note, which uses a different approach to the harmony, containing mostly diatonic triads, falling strictly within the key of G. Instead of the basic 1-5 progression that we actually did earlier, which was G to D or D7, you're going to be moving entirely in parallel motion within the key. Now you keep your fretting hand close to the strings when you're playing this exercise when switching between chords. When playing chords up and down the fingerboard, slide your fretting hand fingers into the next chord, like this. Like that. You'll get used to this technique with practice. Example number 3, rubato, but I'll count it off for you again. 1, 2, 3, 4. I would also practice example number 3 in different fingerings on the fingerboard up and down the neck as well. Like this. Instead of the A minor going down to here, down the fingerboard, I would go, you can slide it up to this too. You can use this fingering here for the A minor on the and of 2. Instead of open strings, we went open before. Okay, you could use, you can go. So you learn how to voice the chords up the neck. With time, you'll eventually learn how to duplicate the voicings from open string chords to other strings across the fingerboard on the neck, okay? Week 2. You don't always need to play the melody on top of the chord. In example 4, it's placed in the second voice from the top voice in each chord. So on the first chord, in the first bar, on the first beat, the melody note's the D. Okay? The occasional inversion, a note other than the root in the bass keeps the helps keep the movement between chords smooth. For instance, in bar 1 on B3, the G chord's third B appears in the bass and ascends neatly by a half step to connect with the C chord's root. C on the and of 3. This example is much trickier to play since the melody is in the inner voice. Try use finger picking or hybrid picking for this example, taking care to apply more pressure to the melody note. To make the chords sound smoothly connected, hold each note of the chord for as long as possible. For instance, in bar 2, fret the first string G with your fourth finger. Keep that finger in place as you add your first and second fingers to play the C chord. So let's try example number 4, nice and slow in rubato. I'll give you a count off, but it'll still be in rubato, okay? Example number 4, 3 and 4 and. In example number 5, the melody is moved to the lowest note of each chord. Accent each melody bass note by picking slightly harder against each note while rolling your picker fingers across the strings. Be sure to mute unused strings. That can be a little tricky, so let's watch this here. So when I'm playing that melody note, you see me rolling across like that? And I'm actually accenting that note with my pick, or if you're using your fingers, you're putting more pressure on that note. So let's play example number 5, nice and slow. Here we go. Example number 5. 3 and 4 and. That was week 2. Week 3. This week we'll kick up things a notch with a jazz-approved chord melody arrangement of Billy Boy. But first, just as you did with London Bridge, learn the melody inside out. This actual chord arrangement is going to be written in B flat, so you're actually going to play this in B flat. And in example number 6, the melody is written in B flat. As before, practice the melody in all keys if you can, and know it inside out like you're walking in your sleep. This song is written in the key of B flat, and it uses the 1 and 5 chords typically, as in example number 6, where we're just playing the melody. But that's the basic arrangement of the song. But we're going to actually do these reharmonizations later. In example number 6, we're going to play the melody basically in the 3rd position. Here's example number 6. I'm going to be playing this very straight, like you should do with the melody, so you know them inside out and in time. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Once you know Billy Boy in your sleep, let's go to example number 7, in which a chord falls on each beat. As opposed to the previous exercises, you're now entirely in 7th chord territory with lots of interesting harmonic moves. Now, for example, in bar 1 of this chord progression, the 1 chord, which is the B flat, you've got instead now a 1-6-2-5 progression, which is very common in jazz and in a lot of popular music, which is B flat major 7, G minor 7, C minor 7, and F7. Now don't worry about these labels if you're not a theory nerd. Half the battle is learning the chord melody, as you know from the other examples, and it's to focus on the technical aspects on the guitar. Practice this example 1 bar at a time until you've learned the whole thing. And also try to memorize the music so you can really focus on playing the example and making it sing. Okay? So let's play example number 7. Now, as before, like with melodies, you should always learn them, learn how to play them in time and know how to play them all over the fingerboard in all keys, because when you're playing jazz chord melody or chord melody in general, you're probably going to be playing stuff in rubato because it's going to be so hard to play all these chords under the melody, okay? So I'm going to play example number 7. I'm going to count it out, but it's still going to be out of time, really. So you can play through this nice and slow. Here's example number 7. I'm going to be using fingerstyle plucking for this with my right hand. And I suggest you do the same thing to get every note clearly in this example. Also, to play through this, eventually you should play it not too slow because it'll be really straining on your fretting hand. Here's example number 7. 1 and 2 and 3 and. That was week number 3. Week number 4. As long as you can clearly hear the melody when you're playing in the chord melody style, you can definitely throw in the kitchen sink now when it comes to harmonic choices. You do this week with a radically reharmonized version of Billy Boy in example number 8. A harmonic method book could be written on this with all the techniques that are used in this example. But again, don't worry too much about music theory. Just learn the example. But if you're into theory, here are a few highlights in this example. There are chromatic passing chords on bar 1, B2, B diminished, which connects the B flat major 7 to the C minor chords. In bar 3, B3, the A flat 13 chord bridging the A7 and the G7 flat 13 chords. Okay, they're both 13th chords actually, okay? In bar 5 is a chromatic cliche. A C minor chord is embellished with the second highest note descending in half steps to form a quick progression: C minor major 7, C minor 7, and C minor 6. Throughout, there are chords with upper extensions. Those notes beyond the 7th, like the sharp 11 and the flat 13 or 13, that add sophistication to the simple song, okay? Learning this arrangement might take you more than a week. it's important to practice it thoroughly until all the chords are under your fingers. And remember to think like a singer when playing this example and in chord melody style in general. You might be running through a handful of harmonies, but it's all about the melody. Here's an example. Number 8, nice and slow and rubato. 1 and 2 and 3 and. I'm Ron Jackson with acoustic guitar, and I hope you enjoyed this weekly workout on chord melody. Thanks, and have a great day. Bye-bye.